Hello everyone, welcome to the Clarity Feature Supportability Training. My name is Bill Yee. And today I'm going to discuss the new improvements that we did for plans, workforce modeling for Clarity 16.1.2. So what's new for this release is that we've added the ability to add additional resource and investment tables to your plans. These are based on lookups that you have on your resource object and your investment abstract object, and we'll cover more of this in later slides. We've also had the ability to create versions of a plan instance and be able to restore a prior version to a working version, and we'll discuss more of that also too in upcoming slides. And we added the ability for OBS Security for your plans. So why are these new improvements are important? Our customers have different requirements on how they plan for headcount, and providing that ability for customers to configure additional resource and investment breakdown tables allow them to tailor those plans on the needs and requirements within their organization. And with versioning, it allows those end users to better analyze and what if their plans, and we're able to create different versions and use to collaborate with their stakeholders and select that best version that best suits their needs. So here's a slide that gives a summary of the new UI changes that we did for this release. We've updated the total widgets up top to kind of compare the previous plan to the current plan, and also to the ability to see prior plan values and actuals. We have also added the ability of creating versions. So you're able to create versions within your plan and also restore, but also to look and select a particular version to view within your plan. We also had the ability to configure plans where you can actually create new resource and investment tables and reorder those within your plan. So let's discuss more of the details related to configuring additional resource and investment tables within your plan. So when you're configuring the plans within your plan hierarchy, only the top level root level plan can edit the plan configuration in your plan hierarchy. And the user must have edit access to that top level plan in order to edit the plan configuration. And once you save that plan configuration, so the top portion here, the top screenshot, is a screenshot of the edit configuration of a plan. And then once it's committed, the child plans in the hierarchy will inherit what was configured at the top level plan. And there's a screenshot here where they see a read-only version of that configuration. But say also too, if you have a child plan and that you change the parent value or you remove that value, so now it becomes a top level plan, the child plan configuration will retain what it had prior to when it became, it was a child plan. So just keep that in mind if you're changing the parent value for a plan. So here's how you access the configuration for the plan. So there's a configure button, and once you hit configure on the top level plan, you'll see the configuration here where you can go ahead and add investment tables. We'll cover that more shortly. Here we'll talk about the plan configuration calculation, we'll discuss in some upcoming slides. And also too, in the child plans, when they click the configure button, they see a read-only copy of the plan, and they will inherit from what's ever configured in the top level plan. So when you're configuring your resource or investment tables, you have up to 10 resource and or investment tables per plan. And you create these tables based on static or dynamic lookups on the resource or investment abstract object. You're able to reorder the investment or resource tables within your plan, even the out-of-the-box ones. And also, too, we allow you to choose how you calculate your current plan calculation. So it's based on your prior plans, either your actual amounts or your previous plan amounts. So why would you choose one versus the other? I think you should try to use your actual amounts, but if you have difficulty getting the accuracy of your actual amounts, then I would choose the previous plan amounts where you can manually edit both the resource and the investment side to determine your current plan calculation. So here's an example of a plan with both resource and investment tables. You can go ahead here, we can create an investment table called team, and then once you add it, it will show the team table, and we show it both with the resources on the left side and the investment on the right side. You can also choose just to show resource only tables within your plan. And if you see it here, we removed all of the investment tables and only show resource tables. And if you look on the right hand side, it will also expand. When you see these tables, it will expand the width of the screen, so you can only just see resources if you just plan to use up just the resource tables only within your plan. And also too, you can remove, if you're more investment driven in terms of your plan, you can remove all your resource tables and only show investment tables. And just like the resources, it will only show the investment tables, and it will expand the width of the screen when you're viewing this within your plan. Now there's different logic when you're updating the resource tables versus your investment tables. Now for the resource tables here, you're able to edit the previous plan amounts within your tables. And also too, with your actuals, this is a read-only column, and how this is populated is when you're importing the resources under the resources tab within your plan, and it populates this particular column. And the add and remove are editable columns depending on what you want to add or remove to determine the value of your current plan. And we talked about the current plan amount is either based on the add and remove against either your actuals or your previous plan amounts, and you choose that within your configuration. Now updating the investment tables are similar to the resource tables in that the previous plan amounts are editable just like the resource tables, but with the investment tables, the actuals are this column is editable for investments. And the rest are the same as well, where the add and remove, these are editable columns that depend on what you want to add or remove to determine in terms of your current plan. And also too, the current plan here is based on the what you select as part of the current plan calculation, either from the actuals or from your previous plan amount. Now the way we design plans is that you can either have a resource-driven plan where you import your resources and adjust the actuals on your investments to match what you have on your resources. And that's what we had in our prior release of plans in 16.1.1. But we also had the ability in this release for investment-driven, where you enter your investment actuals and then you map or import your resources to match what you have with your investment actuals. We recommend you either choose one or the other. You have a resource-driven plan or investment-driven plan. You can, but the challenge of balancing out a kind of a blended or hybrid in terms of resource and investment can be challenged in getting the totals correct. And in future revisions, we're going to have you either choose a resource or investment-driven plan. So keep that in mind when you're working with your plans. Decide how you want this to be driven, either by resources or investment. So let's go through an example of a resource-driven actuals plan. So in this example, we want to increase the headcount for architects by 2. So that means we want to increase the actuals to 4. So in order to do that and increase the actuals, you have to go to the resource tab. So let's click on the resource tab. So from the resource modal, let's select 2 architects and then click add and add them to the plan. So when we come back to the plans view, you can see the architects is updated in the primary row table, and the person type is updated. But on the investment breakdown side, there's an undefined row, and for those two additional architects we added. So we need to balance that out against name categories. So let's do that. So let's change the innovation from 19 to 21, and when we do that and hit enter, now the undefined row is removed, and now you have a balanced plan. A balanced plan is when you don't have any undefined rows in all of your resource and investment breakdown tables. Now let's cover an investment-driven actuals example, and where we first start on the investment side. Now here we want to change the actuals on the investment, and now create an undefined, once we update the actuals on the investment side, it will create undefined records in the other investment tables and also to the resource tables. So let's change the actual value for cost reduction from 3 to 6. And when we commit this change, so now you see that the system created undefined rows for the other investment breakdown tables and the resource breakdown tables. So now let's adjust and balance out the undefineds on the resource breakdown side. And by doing that, you need to go import 3 additional resources from the resources tab. So let's do that. We will import 3 engineers. We selected those, and then once we add them, so you see the undefineds were removed for the resource breakdown tables, and now we need to address the undefineds on the investment breakdown tables. So let's do that. So now we want to change that value from 3 to 6 to balance out that undefined, and once we commit the 6, so it did remove the undefined row for the investment category. Now let's address the team table by changing the Jaguar value from 3 to 6. When we commit that change, it now removes the undefined row for the teams table, and now you have a balanced plan in both your resource and your investment breakdown tables. Now let's review the new plan versioning improvements for this release. So we added the ability to version a plan, and this version is limited for a specific plan instance, not the whole plan hierarchy. So when you're working throughout your organization, each of your different levels can plan accordingly and version accordingly at a plan instance level. And the versioning will be a snapshot of values that are entered within your resource or investment tables, and we'll cover more of that shortly. And once you version a plan, it's read-only, and no changes can be made to that version. Or you can't overwrite that version plan. And you would not be able to version a plan that had negative actuals within your plan. And also, too, you can restore a plan to a current working copy, and we'll discuss more of that in an upcoming slide. So this slide gives a summary of what is versioned and what is not versioned. So essentially, the green items are what's versioned, and the red items are what's not versioned. So we'll cover more of this in detail in later slides, but we'll cover also to what's not versioned related to the resource actuals, and also to the table configuration. So when you create a version, you go ahead and click the version button, and you only have this version button from the working copy. This is your editable plan at the time, and you just give it a name within the version and then click save. So we saw a working copy, and then also you can have a version copy. So what's the difference between the two? Your working copy is there's only one working copy per plan instance, and this is the only editable plan where you can actually edit the values within your plan. and you're updating both the resources and the investment tables when you're planning. That you can only do that within your working copy. And the system will use this working copy plan when you're aggregating the values up the plan hierarchy. And also, too, when you create a version of the plan, you do it on the working copy. And it will take a snapshot of those values on the working copy to create the version. Now, when you have a version copy, it's that point-in-time snapshot of the values on the resource and investment table. And we showed you what's version, what's not. And that version copy is read-only, and it can't be overridden. Versions can be deleted. You can go through, you have a manage area, we can delete those versions. And say if you want to restore a version to the restored, and what it does, you restore that version into the working copy. So then you can go ahead and edit those values. And it will overwrite those resource and investment values in the working copy, which what you have within the version copy. And also, to the system will prompt you before you do the overriding of the working copy. So just keep that in mind. So let's go through an example of creating a plan version from a working copy to a version copy. So currently, right now, this is the working copy, and actually that's what you see within the version pull down here. And then, and here's another screenshot. We created a version copy called baseline. And the difference between this versus the working copy, the baseline is read-only. And also, too, you also notice there are no prior versions or actuals on the baseline when you do have it on the working copy. And also, too, there's no add or remove items on the baseline version, just to kind of give a comparison between this example for the working copy and the version copy. So say, for example, we want to restore the baseline into the working copy. So if we click restore on the baseline here, then we'll get a prompt to allow you to say that do you want to load the baseline to overwrite the working copy to get a confirmation. And say if we click on the confirm button, it will then here show kind of the before and after for the working copy. This is what we had before. We had the add and remove values, the prior version values, and now this is the working copy after the restore. There are no prior version actuals, add or remove. They were all zeroed out right now. So that's what happens when we do a restore from a version copy to a working copy. So as I mentioned before, the table configuration is not version. So there's only one table configuration per plan hierarchy. And that table configuration is applied to all plans, all working copy plans and versions within the hierarchy. So how does that look and how does that play out inside inside your plan hierarchy or when you're working with a plan? So here, let's go through an example here where in this example the manager, goal, and team tables are added to the working copy after the version was created. So if you look at the working copy here, we have the manager field on the resource side, the goal and team was added on the investment tables, and this was added after we created the version copy. So the way it looks then is that if we view the version copy, that version copy will work on the current table configuration, and it'll also add the goal, team, and manager tables, and you can view it within the version copy. But what it'll do, it'll behave differently if it's a resource versus the investment. Let's take the resource side for now. Since these values were already part of the manager right now, those actuals, it'll display those within the version copy. And it'll take it based on what you have, the information that you have within the resources tab, and display the manager information in those tables. on the investment side, when we the goal and the team will display as undefined compared to what you have in the working copy, because we only have values in the working copy right now, and at the time we took the snapshot for the version copy here, it was no value. So all we can display here is undefined for these particular tables that were added after this version was created. So essentially, on the investment side, the version will display as undefined tables within the version side, and then on the resource side, it will display the information based on information that's on the resource record in the manager field. So let's discuss the versioning and actuals. The actual totals and the resource actual totals are not versions. So there's only one actual total per plan, and is used across all versions and working copy within a plan. The resource actuals are taken from under the resource tab, and that's what's imported there are your resource actuals. On the contrary, the investment actuals are versioned, and the investors actuals are taken by the values that are entered within the actual columns within your investment breakdown tables. The categories where the actuals are assigned to, the values there, are versioned on both the resource and investment tables. So let's discuss more in detail the versioning and actuals. As we mentioned in the previous slide, the actual totals and the resource actuals are same across all working copies and all versions, and they are not versioned. So if you look at the working copy here, the actual is 5. We also display it within the version copy, it's 5 as well, because both the version copy and working copy are pointing toward those one actuals that are under the resources actuals there, and the totals there are the same between both working copy and version copy. And then also too, the categories where those actuals are assigned within the tables are versions. So all these categories within the resource breakdown tables and the investment breakdown tables, they are versioned. Now, one thing to note is that the investment actuals are versioned. So it takes on the version copy, it takes a snapshot of the actuals at that time what the value of those actuals are. So if you look at it here, these values here are different than the actuals that are actually displayed within the working copy, because it was taken at a different period of time. Also too, the categories, if categories did not exist when the version was created, those actuals be assigned in an undefined column here. So if you looked at it, there's a difference between the actuals in the version copy versus which you have in the working copy, and the remaining there, since it is pointing to one set of actuals, those that weren't taken at the time we took the version will be assigned in an undefined row within those particular tables. So let's discuss the improvements around OBS Security. So in the prior release, we did not have OBS Security related to plans, and now we added that capability. So if in your OBS you're able to associate the plan object to those OBS, and then what they'll do, they'll create that OBS attribute on the plans object, and when you give it an API attribute ID, you would be able to add that particular OBS to your plans, and you can use it for OBS security within your plans. So let's give a demonstration of the new plan improvements so you can see them in action. So I'm going to give a demonstration of the new plan enhancements for 16.1.2. So let's go into a plan. Now this is the top level plan, the Acme HQ. And first let me cover some of the new UI changes we've done to plans for this release. So we changed the total widget, where now we show the previous year plan and the actual and the current plan. And then within the breakdown tables, you'll see a column for not only the previous year, but also to the actuals. The previous year is a manually editable field for both the resource and the investment side. The actuals will come on the resource side on the resource you import under the resource module here, and the actuals here on the investment side is what you enter in. We've added ability to do versioning, which we'll cover later, but first I want to cover the configuration, the improvements we did for this release. So what we've done is that we've added the ability to add additional resource and investment breakdown tables. So let's add some new ones here. So you can go ahead and any lookup, static or dynamic you have on the resource or investment abstract object will be available to create a table. So we'll create one for manager, and here we're going to use goal, and for this one we'll use team. So we'll create 3 additional tables. We also have a toggle here where you can choose the calculation, the current plan calculation. And you can either do it from the actual amount or from the previous plan amount. So in it was showed before that 2022. We recommend that you use the actual amount, but there could be situations where you may not get an accurate actual amount. You may have a reduction in force that happened at the company, or a mergers and acquisition, or reorganization where determining an actual amount may be difficult. So you can also choose the previous amount, and you can enter that value manually and use it as part of your plan. So with that, let's save this. And here we see the new tables. They're empty for right now, but what happens now is that whatever you configure at the top level plan, all the child level plans will inherit that. So let's go to a child plan and see how that looks. Let's go to Acme CRM, and it inherits and has those configuration tables. So it's a way of actually providing some governance when doing your plan. And if you go into configure, you can only see a read-only version of this plan because you can only do editing at the top level. So as I mentioned before, let's do a resource-driven actual plan. And with that, let's start with importing some resources. So let's go inside and let's go ahead and import some engineers and architects. So let's go ahead, enter some engineers. Let's enter some employees and some contractors. And then add 2 architects. So we'll have 6 here. Do add. If we go back to the plans, it's on the resource side, it populates that data appropriately for each of the primary role, person type, and manager. On the investment side, we need to balance it out. So right now we need to balance out the undefined to a named category. And we haven't added any categories yet. So let's go ahead and add categories. Let's add innovation and request for enhancement. For goal, we use cost avoidance and grow the business. And for team, let's go for crushers and for jaguars. So we'll have that out here right now. Since we're using the actual ones, we're not going to worry about the previous plan amounts on the prior plan, but you can edit these as you wish. So for now, let's go ahead and balance out these ones here on the investment breakdown side. So let's make sure to make this 3 and 3 between innovation and RFE, and then we move the undefined items up to named categories. We can do the same on the goal. Let's do 2 and 4 here. And for right now, let's keep these balanced between crushers and the jaguar teams. So if you do a quick refresh from going from in here, we remove the undefined categories, and now we have a balanced plan. So with that, we can actually version this plan and go ahead and click the version, and let's call this baseline. This is our baseline plan here. And we click save. And this, we create a version of this plan. It's a read-only plan, so you're not able to update or change this plan, but you can come back and view it either from the working copy or from baseline, or go back to see the baseline. So the working copy is your only one editable plan where you can edit the tables and values within the plan. And it's the plan in where the values are rolled up throughout the plan hierarchy. And before we go ahead and restore that version, let's make some additional changes to this working copy. So let's say, for example, let's add 2 additional resources into this plan. Say, for example, let's go in here and let's add 2 more engineers. Go ahead and we'll add 2 more engineers. Click add. And once we go to the plan, the resource side updates appropriately, but then those 2 undefined resources apply more undefined on the investment breakdown side. So let's go ahead and move this up here, those 2, and make this one 5. That'll be 8 there. Zeros that out. Make this 4, and then we'll split this up between 1 here and 1 here. This will balance out the undefined and remove them within your tables. What we can also do is add additional resources. Let's say maybe we want to do, for the upcoming year, add 2 more architects. With that, it will add undefineds within all the other different tables. So let's adjust it accordingly. So these will be internal employees to balance that out. Let's move these other ones under Rosie Miller. And then for these, we'll apply these to the innovation side and balance this out for, let's do it for growing the business. And then also to apply these 2 to the Jaguar team. And then we do a quick refresh. Now everything is balanced here. So now let's cover how the versioning works, because the way versioning works right now, we version everything with all the values within the table. The only things that's not versioned are the resource actuals, which are these columns here. And then also we only have one configuration, which applies not only the working copy, but all the different versions. So let's go ahead and see how things look on the baseline with these additional changes. So the way things look here now is that before the add, these are all versioned, all these different columns. The actuals are not versioned, so we are actually looking at what you have inside the resource module here. Now, when we took the snapshot of this baseline, we didn't have those 2 additional resources, that engineers that we imported. So those will be categorized under undefined for all the different tables. In addition, the add items that we did for the additional architects are not reflected within these tables as well. So it was done at that snapshot back at that time. So what you can do is go ahead and restore. So when you restore this, it will let you know, give you a warning that the baseline will overwrite the working copy. And if you click confirm, you'll see that what we had in the prior version is now in the working copy, and now things are editable within the table. So that's an example of the resource-driven kind of actual plan. But let's give an example of an investment-driven plan. So let's go in and go to investment-driven. I have a save view here. And let's go into the clarity plan. So with this one, I've created ahead of time a goal table, and we also have the primary row and person type. So with the investment driven, we enter the values on the investment side first. So let's go ahead on the innovation, we want 4, and then on the request for enhancement is 2. So we notice here is that in here, we have undefined on the goals, so we can adjust these accordingly as well on the actuals. And then also 2, it's undefined on the resource side. So let's go ahead and adjust these, and the way of adjusting and balancing out the actuals is importing the resources. So let's do the same that we had before. Let's do 4 engineers and 2 architects. Let's go into engineers. Let's cover 4 engineers. Let's get a blend of engineers and contractors. And then let's go ahead 2 architects. We'll add that to the plan. And here your plan here is balanced out here as part of it. Now let's go ahead here and create a baseline for this particular plan. And then if we do a version, create a baseline for this investment driven plan, and click save. Now we have a baseline for this plan. Now let's do a different scenario that we for this investment driven plan. Let's go ahead and configure, and let's add a new table into this plan. So if we go back, let's say for example, let's go back and go to the top level plan called AOD. We'll go to configure, and let's go ahead and add we'll add the goal one here. And let's see, we had the goal, and let's add one more here. Let's add the team one here. Sorry. Add the goal. So now we added, we did a baseline, but then also too, later time we'll add a new table in there. So if we go back into the Clarity plan, we'll see that new team here table. We'll go ahead and add crushers and jaguars, just similar to how we did in the resource-driven plan. And now we need to go ahead and balance out this plan as well here with this new table on the investment side. If you do a quick refresh here from resources, it now balanced out. Now you have no undefineds. Now, how would the versioning work when you add a new table that your version didn't have? So let's go back to the baseline and see how that looks. So if you look at it here, because we only having one configuration version that we point to, you'll see that new table under the prior version, but at the time we took the baseline copy, there were no categories taken, so everything will actually be set inside the undefined row, and that's how it will be in the prior version. So just like we did in the other use case, if we restore this particular version, and to give you a confirmation, it will be restored just like as you had, from your baseline. Now it's in the working copy. So that concludes my presentation for plans, workforce modeling for 16.1.2. Thank you.